It was a quiet Sunday afternoon, the kind of day where nothing extraordinary is supposed to happen. She had just come back from what she claimed was an exhausting night shift at the hospital. Her scrubs were still folded over the edge of the couch, and she was upstairs taking a shower. I was in the kitchen making coffee when I heard the familiar ping from her phone. Normally, I wouldn't even glance at her notifications. We trusted each other, or at least I thought we did, but that sound hit differently that day. Maybe it was the way it echoed in the silence. Maybe it was intuition. Maybe it was something deeper inside me that already knew the truth. So I looked. Her phone was face up on the table, and the screen was still lit. Just one message. From someone named Dr. Rafael. No last name. No professional prefix. Just Rafael, and then the message itself. Still thinking about last night. When can we make it happen again? My stomach twisted instantly. I blinked, hoping I had misread it. I hadn't. The words stared back at me like they were carved in fire. And right then, I made the choice that changed everything. I picked up the phone. The lock screen was gone. Her phone was completely unlocked. That never happened. She was always cautious, always aware. But that day it was wide open, like fate had finally decided I deserved to see what was really going on behind the curtain. My fingers trembled as I tapped into her messages. And what I saw next didn't feel like betrayal at first. It felt like I had opened a portal into someone else's life. There were pictures, inside jokes, screenshots of memes she never shared with me, messages sent at 1:17 a.m., at 4:42 a.m., at times when she was supposed to be on shift, saving lives. Except she was living another life, one that didn't include me. My first instinct wasn't rage. It was disbelief. I kept waiting to find a message that would explain everything. That would tell me it was a misunderstanding, that Dr. Rafael was just a colleague joking around, that none of this was real. But the deeper I went, the harder it became to pretend. There was a message that said, "I miss your touch." Another one, "I still feel your heartbeat on mine." These weren't messages between co-workers. These weren't harmless. These were intimate. These were written by someone who believed he had a piece of her I didn't even know she'd given away. And what cut the deepest wasn't even the words. It was the way she replied. The tone, the playfulness, the comfort, the language of two people who shared a secret world. A world I had never been invited into. And the more I scrolled, the more I realized this wasn't something new. This wasn't a one-time mistake. This had been going on for weeks, maybe months, possibly longer. She had been living two lives, the nurse who cared for others, and the woman who betrayed the one man who never stopped believing in her. Just then, I heard the water stop upstairs. She was coming down. I had maybe 20 seconds. I put the phone down exactly where I found it, face up, just like before, as if I had never touched it, as if my heart hadn't just been set on fire. I stood still, frozen, listening to the sound of her footsteps on the stairs. The rhythm that used to make me smile now sounded like thunder inside my chest. And in that moment, I knew the woman walking down those stairs wasn't the same woman I thought I had married. She looked the same, smelled the same, smiled the same. But behind all of that, something had changed. Or maybe something had been missing all along. She walked into the kitchen like nothing had happened. Her hair still damp, skin flushed from the hot shower. She kissed me on the cheek, soft, casual, rehearsed. I pretended nothing was wrong. My body moved on autopilot. I poured her coffee. I smiled, but my insides were screaming. I had become an actor in my own life, pretending I hadn't just seen the truth unravel inside a screen. She sat at the table, scrolled through social media, laughed at something meaningless. I watched her fingers move across the same phone that had just torn my world apart. And in that silence between us, I decided I needed to know everything. Later that night, after she fell asleep beside me like she always did, I took her phone again, quietly, carefully, the same way you approach a crime scene, because that's what felt like, evidence of a murder, not of a person, but of trust, of love, of every vow we once made. I opened their thread again, and then I scrolled. I scrolled like someone searching for a sign, a reason, a clue. But what I found was worse than anything I had imagined. It wasn't just physical. It was emotional. She told him things she used to tell me. She called him her safe place. Said he understood her better than anyone. She sent selfies, photos I had never seen, smiles that looked too real, outfits she never wore for me. I read messages from holidays, Christmas Eve, when she said she was too tired to stay up with me, Valentine's Day, when she claimed the hospital was understaffed, even our anniversary. She had sent him a message saying, "Can't stop thinking about that night in your office." My stomach turned with every word. My fingers scrolled, but my soul was sinking. And it wasn't just what they said. It was how easily they said it, how normal it had become. I wasn't reading confessions of guilt. I was reading love letters from another world, a world where I didn't exist. If you've ever laid next to someone who made you feel completely alone, then maybe this story isn't just mine, it's ours. And if that's true, subscribe, because stories like this deserve to be heard by those who understand. There was a message that stopped me cold. Just 4 words, but they hit harder than anything else. He still doesn't know. It was recent, just a few days ago. I stared at it for what felt like hours. That one sentence turned my heartbreak into humiliation. It wasn't just betrayal anymore. It was a game, a secret they shared while I was unknowingly playing the fool. And then came the laughter. Ha ha, he's so clueless, typed by the man who knew my wife's body and secrets. That broke something in me, a piece of me that had always believed we were different, that our love was stronger, that we were a team. That illusion shattered in silence, under the glow of a screen she had forgotten to lock. But still I scrolled, as if some part of me needed more pain to fully let go. There were references to places I had never heard of. Tonight, I thought she was saving lives. She was, instead, creating another one behind my back. And as I read more, the room around me disappeared. It was just me and the words. Words I couldn't unread. Images I couldn't unsee. And a truth I couldn't unknow. I was no longer the husband of a nurse. I was a stranger she came home to, the background character in her other story. And yet, I didn't confront her. Not that night. I lay beside her in bed, heart pounding, eyes open in the dark, listening to her breathe peacefully. How could she sleep like that, knowing what she had done? Or maybe she never really loved me the way I loved her. Maybe the version of us I was fighting for only existed in my head. And for the first time, I understood silence could be louder than screaming. And sometimes betrayal doesn't come with slamming doors or screaming matches. Sometimes it comes in the form of laughter typed behind your back. The morning after felt like waking up in someone else's life. I stood in the kitchen making coffee, just like I always did. Same mug, same smell, same routine. But everything around me looked unfamiliar. It was like I had fallen through a trapdoor into a version of my own world where nothing made sense anymore. She walked in behind me and wrapped her arms around my waist. I froze. That touch used to feel like home. Now it felt like a ghost pressing against my skin. She whispered, "Good morning, love," as if nothing had happened, as if the last 12 hours weren't spent hiding a man's words behind a phone screen. I managed to mumble something back, but my voice didn't sound like mine. It sounded like someone trying to pretend he wasn't shattered. That day, every small memory began to change, not in appearance, but in meaning. It's terrifying how easy your brain can rewrite your past once you know the truth. I remembered her late-night texts, the ones she said were from patients or hospital staff. I remembered how she started showering right after work, how she clutched her phone even in her sleep, how she began pulling away just slightly, saying she was exhausted, stressed, overwhelmed. I used to believe her. I used to buy flowers when she seemed sad, cook her favorite meals when she was quiet, hold her tighter when she cried. But now I saw it all differently. Those weren't signs of a woman struggling with work. Those were signs of someone struggling to manage a double life. Every single "I love you" she whispered before leaving for a shift, now echoed like a lie. I started wondering. Was she texting him in the car, smiling at his messages in the hospital elevator, laughing at my cluelessness while he planned her next fake overnight? We once danced in the kitchen. I remembered that. One random Thursday night, when her favorite song came on, and I grabbed her by the waist and spun her around, and she laughed so freely. I thought that moment was real, pure, untouchable. But now I look back and wondered, was that before him or after? Was that laugh for me, or was she thinking about him when she smiled? That's the worst part about betrayal. It doesn't just hurt you once. It poisons your memories. It turns every good thing sour. Every touch becomes suspicious. Every kiss becomes a question mark. And worst of all, every I love you becomes a wound. I tried to focus on work that day, but my mind wouldn't stop replaying things. The messages, the timelines, the pictures she had sent him, the way she used to talk to me. I wonder when exactly I became invisible. When did I stop being the man she dreamed about and start being the man she lied to? And why didn't I notice sooner? Was I blind? Was I too trusting? Too comfortable? Or did she just become that good at pretending? That night, when she asked me to watch a movie with her, I said yes. I sat beside her on the couch, so close I could feel her warmth, and yet I had never felt so far away. She rested her head on my shoulder. I looked down at her and thought, how are you still the same person on the outside while being someone else entirely inside? It felt like living with a stranger, wearing the skin of someone I used to love. And then the strangest thing happened. She laughed at something in the movie. That laugh. It was the same one that made me fall in love with her years ago. But hearing it now, it didn't sound beautiful anymore. It sounded cruel. It sounded like a reminder of everything I thought we were, and everything we no longer were. And as she rested there unbothered, I realized something heartbreaking. The memories I treasured most were only mine. To her, they were moments easily discarded, overwritten, erased by the thrill of a new man behind hospital walls. I couldn't go back to those memories anymore. They didn't belong to the same woman. Or maybe they never did. Maybe she had been drifting away far longer than I knew, and I was too in love, or too blind, to see it. It was a Tuesday night when it happened. She had fallen asleep early after saying her day was long, and her patients were especially demanding. I watched her drift off beside me, her breathing steady, her body relaxed, as if nothing was weighing on her chest. Meanwhile, mine was caving in. I got out of bed slowly, quietly, the way you do when you're about to break your own heart on purpose. I picked up her phone. The same phone that had become a weapon, a vault, a liar in my home. It was locked again this time. She had remembered, but she had used the same 4 digits as before. Maybe she thought I wouldn't check again. Maybe she thought I had accepted it. Or maybe she simply didn't care anymore. I opened the messages. I didn't scroll this time. I just let my eyes rest on the last thing she had sent him. It was one sentence, one line, but it destroyed me in a way that no shouting, no affair, no physical betrayal ever could. She had written, I feel more myself with you than I ever did at home. I read it once, twice, a third time, and with each pass, it felt less like ink on a screen and more like a bullet through my chest. It wasn't just about sex. It wasn't even about lies. It was about identity, about connection, about the truth that, in her heart, I was no longer the man she saw when she thought about happiness. That sentence meant she hadn't just shared her body with someone else. She had shared her soul. And in that moment, every little effort I had made for her flashed through my mind. The dinners I cooked when she came home late. The long talks on nights when she said she felt overwhelmed. The notes I left in her bag before her shifts. The way I stood by her during her hardest nursing exams. The vacations I planned to make her smile again. All of it, all of me, had been traded for someone who didn't live in our house. Someone who hadn't bled to keep her standing. Someone who didn't know the sound of her laughter before it got quieter. And yet, somehow, he got the version of her that I had loved most. The version I believed only I was meant to see. I put the phone down. Not roughly. Not dramatically. Just down. I walked into the bathroom, locked the door, sat on the cold floor, and let the silence crush me. I didn't cry. I couldn't. It was a grief too heavy for tears. It was the death of something that didn't have a body, but still left me mourning like I had lost everything. And maybe I had. Maybe that's exactly what betrayal is. A death without burial. A heartbreak that never gets closure. Just silence. Cold. Endless. Silent. That message, those 15 words, didn't just break my heart. They rewrote my past. They erased every moment when I thought we were in sync. They turned every kiss, every laugh, every "I love you" into background noise for a story I was never really part of. And the worst part? I believed her. Every time she said she was tired. Every time she turned her phone face down. Every time she said she was just not feeling close lately. I blamed myself. I tried harder. I became softer, more attentive. But now I saw the truth. You can't outlove someone's decision to lie to you. And if you've ever read something you weren't supposed to see, something that changed everything, you understand this kind of pain. It doesn't shout. It whispers in every quiet moment afterward. It lives in your chest, in your stomach, in your reflection. And if you're still reading those words in your head, over and over again, try and make it mean something different, then I know how you feel. And if this is your pain, too, if you ever felt like someone handed your heart to a stranger with no warning, subscribe. Because this space isn't just for stories. It's for survival. And right now, you need to know you're surviving that I don't care about algorithms. I care about the people listening to this who are bleeding silently like I did. If you've ever held back tears just to protect someone who didn't protect you, subscribe. You don't have to do this alone anymore. The next morning, I watched her make coffee in our kitchen. Same motion, same cup, same rhythm. She stood barefoot, her hair pulled into that same messy bun she always wore on post-shift mornings. Her scrubs were neatly folded on the chair. Her stethoscope hung over the counter like it always had. Everything looked normal, familiar, but I didn't recognize her anymore. And the part that scared me most was that she looked exactly the same. Because when you expect betrayal to come with some visible transformation, some crack in a mask, some failure in performance, you're not prepared for how clean, how practiced, how ordinary it really looks. She turned and smiled at me. Not fake, not strained, just her usual smile. And in that moment, I realized the woman I had built my life around could lie with her eyes wide open and her heart completely closed. I sat down at the table, watching her, not saying much. She asked me if I slept well. I nodded. She asked if I had plans for the afternoon. I said I might catch up on work. We talked. We moved through our morning like we always had. Except now, I wasn't looking at her through the lens of love. I was watching a stranger impersonate the woman I had promised everything to. And I couldn't stop asking myself, how long had she been doing this? How many days, how many shifts, how many conversations have been covered in this soft, controlled voice that sounded like hers but wasn't anymore? At one point, she sat across from me and reached for my hand, just casually, like nothing had shifted. Her fingers brushed mine. I froze, not because I didn't want her to touch me, but because the hand that had held mine was also sending love to someone else. The hand that now wrapped around our coffee cup was the same hand that had typed, "I feel more myself with you than I ever did at home." I pulled my hand back slowly. She didn't question it. Maybe she didn't notice. Or maybe she did and just didn't care. That afternoon, she got ready for work. I watched her tie her shoelaces, clip her badge, apply a soft layer of makeup. And I kept wondering, was this the same routine she did before meeting him? Did she choose her lipstick for me or for him? Did she smile in the mirror thinking about saving lives or about sneaking glances at him between rounds? Did she wear perfume to feel confident or to be remembered? I remembered the first time she ever came home from a shift as a full-time nurse. She was radiant, exhausted but proud. She had hugged me so tightly I could feel her heartbeat in my chest. That day, she looked at me like I was her anchor, like I was the one thing that made sense in the chaos of her new world. But now, She barely looked at me at all. And when she did, I couldn't tell if she was seeing me or just the idea of the husband she had outgrown. When she left for work that evening, I stood by the window and watched her drive away, the taillights fading down the street, disappearing into the same night she had disappeared into so many times before. And it hit me. I wasn't waiting for her to come back anymore. I was waiting for the strength to walk away. Because the truth was simple now. She was still a nurse, still gentle with strangers, still soft with patients, still strong for people she didn't love. But for me, the man who stayed, who believed, who fought, she had nothing left. No honesty, no touch, no explanation, just routines, just performance, just silence. If you've ever sat across from someone and seen them clearly for the first time, not for who they pretended to be, but for who they became behind your back, you understand this moment. It's not a scream. It's not a slap. It's a quiet realization that shakes everything. And if you're living that silence now, if you're still pretending that your home is whole when it's already cracked beneath you, subscribe. This isn't just about betrayal. It's about survival. And if no one else will say it, I will. You don't deserve to be lied to with a smile on someone's face and your heart in their hands. Pain is supposed to have a cure. That's what I always believed. A broken bone, a wound, a fever. There's a treatment, a plan, a way to heal. And maybe that's what hurt the most. The woman who spent her life caring for strangers, the nurse who knew how to comfort others with a single touch, couldn't or wouldn't heal the wound she left in me. Every time I looked at her now, I didn't see my wife. I saw the storm behind her uniform, the secrets, the messages that would haunt me even when I closed my eyes. She used to call me her safe place. She used to look at me like I was the reason she could face another 12-hour shift. Now she looked past me, through me, like I was just another piece of furniture in the life she no longer wanted. I started noticing the little things. The way she smiled when a notification popped up on her phone. The way she angled the screen away from me, just slightly, but enough to feel it. The sudden habit of leaving the room to answer calls that couldn't wait. And every time she said, "It's just work," I could hear the cracks in her voice. I could hear him, Dr. Rafael, somewhere in the distance of those words. It's strange how someone's voice can echo in your head, even if you've never heard it. I didn't know what he sounded like, but I hated him. I hated the version of her he got to see, the version that still smiled without effort, the version I had been trying to bring back for months, maybe years, without realizing I had already lost her. And yet, despite everything I had read, everything I had felt, I still found myself trying, making dinner, asking about her day, offering to rub her shoulders after long shifts. Not because I thought it would fix anything, but because some part of me still wanted to believe. That's the cruelty of love. You hold on even when you know it's killing you. You pretend that one more kiss, one more kind word, one more memory might be enough to undo the damage. But the truth is, there's no prescription for betrayal. There's no pill to take, no bandage to cover the wound. It bleeds from the inside, slowly, silently, until you barely recognize yourself anymore. One night, I stood in front of the bathroom mirror and barely recognized a man staring back at me. I looked older, tired. My eyes were hollow, not from lack of sleep, but from the weight of knowing, from the constant replay of every word I'd read on her phone, every laugh I wasn't part of, every secret shared between them, while I believed she was busy caring for the sick. It's not just heartbreak. It's humiliation. It's standing in your own home and feeling like a stranger. If you've ever loved someone who looked you in the eyes and swore they cared, while giving their heart to someone else, you know this pain. It's not sharp, it's heavy. It presses down on you every morning. It follows you through every quiet room. It turns every good memory into poison. And it doesn't go away, no matter how much you try to distract yourself. There's no medicine for this. No emergency room visit. No nurse to patch it up. Not when the wound is caused by the one person who swore to protect you. And if you're living with that kind of pain right now, if you're swallowing alone just to make it through another day, subscribe. Not because this will fix you, but because you deserve to feel seen. to know that someone understands exactly what it feels like to break in silence. I went to bed that night with her lying next to me, scrolling on her phone with that same faint smile. I closed my eyes, but I didn't sleep. I just listened to the sound of her tapping on the screen, wondering who she was talking to, wondering if, at that very moment, I was more of a ghost to her than a husband. And I realized sometimes the deepest pain isn't when someone leaves you. It's when they stay, but give themselves to someone else. If this sounds like your life, stop pretending you're fine. Stop hiding it like I did. Subscribe, not for me, but for every person who thought they were crazy, until the truth finally shattered them. You're safe here. We see you. They say silence can be comforting. That sometimes the quiet between two people speaks of safety, of understanding, of love that doesn't need to be spelled out. But that's only true when the silence is shared. The silence we had, it wasn't peaceful. It was loud, deafening. It echoed in every corner of our home, even when we spoke. And one night, I decided I needed to break it. Not because I want to fight, but because I needed to know if the woman I loved still lived behind those eyes. We were sitting on the couch. A movie played on the screen, but neither of us was watching. I could see her glancing at her phone every few minutes. Her smile flickered just slightly whenever it buzzed. That same buzz I once thought meant she was checking in with co-workers. That same buzz I now knew came from someone who had stolen the part of her I couldn't reach anymore. I turned to her, heart racing, throat dry, and said softly, "Is there something you want to tell me?" She looked up, surprised, then blinked. "What do you mean?" she asked, as if the question came from nowhere. But it hadn't. It had been burning in my chest for days. I stared at her, really stared, and for the first time, I saw fear in her eyes. Not guilt, not sadness. Fear. The fear of being found out, of being forced to say out loud what she had been hiding so well behind her routine and her nurse's smile. I waited, gave her space, let the silence stretch, hoping she would feel it, hoping she would be brave. But all she said was, "I'm just tired. It's been a long week." She looked back at the screen, as if the conversation was over. That was it. No confession. No denial. Just the kind of reply someone gives when they've already made peace with living a lie. That silence, that refusal to speak the truth, screamed louder than any fight ever could. It told me everything I needed to know. It told me she wasn't coming back. That the version of her who used to cry in my arms after hard shifts, who used to call me during breaks just to hear my voice, was gone. Not dead, just given away to someone else. Someone who didn't sit in silence hoping she'd speak. Someone who got the truth while I was fed the performance. And you know what's strange? I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I didn't even ask more questions. Because when someone looks you in the eye and lies with silence, you finally understand that there's no answer you could ask for that would fix it. You finally stop needing an explanation. You finally stop begging for a version of them that doesn't exist anymore. I stood up, told her I needed some air, and left the room. I walked out into the night, cold on my skin, but somehow it felt better than the warmth inside. At least the cold was honest. At least the stars didn't lie. At least the wind didn't hide who it was. And in that moment, I realized something terrifying. The silence wasn't a wall between us. It was a door, one she had already walked through, one I had been standing in front of, pretending it was still locked. But it wasn't. She was gone, long gone. And if you've ever been in that place where silence replaces love, where avoidance replaces honesty, where the person beside you feels further than a stranger, subscribe. Because this story, this pain, this silence, it's not just mine. It might be yours too. And if no one else hears you, I do. And sometimes being heard is the first step out of the silence. They say silence can be comforting. That sometimes the quiet between two people speaks of safety, of understanding, of love that doesn't need to be spelled out. But that's only true when the silence is shared. The silence we had, it wasn't peaceful. It was loud, deafening. It echoed in every corner of our home, even when we spoke. And one night, I decided I needed to break it. Not because I want to fight, but because I needed to know if the woman I loved still lived behind those eyes. We were sitting on the couch. A movie played on the screen, but neither of us was watching. I could see her glancing at her phone every few minutes. Her smile flickered just slightly whenever it buzzed. That same buzz I once thought meant she was checking in with coworkers. That same buzz I now knew came from someone who had stolen the part of her I couldn't reach anymore. I turned to her, heart racing, throat dry, and said softly, "Is there something you want to tell me?" She looked up, surprised, then blinked. "What do you mean?" she asked, as if the question came from nowhere. But it hadn't. It had been burning in my chest for days. I stared at her, really stared, and for the first time, I saw fear in her eyes. Not guilt, not sadness. Fear. The fear of being found out, of being forced to say out loud what she had been hiding so well behind her routine and her nurse's smile. I waited, gave her space, let the silence stretch, hoping she would feel it, hoping she would be brave. But all she said was, "I'm just tired. It's been a long week." She looked back at the screen, as if the conversation was over. That was it. No confession. No denial. Just the kind of reply someone gives when they've already made peace with living a lie. That silence, that refusal to speak the truth, screamed louder than any fight ever could. It told me everything I needed to know. It told me she wasn't coming back. That the version of her who used to cry in my arms after hard shifts, who used to call me during breaks just to hear my voice, was gone. Not dead, just given away. To someone else. Someone who didn't sit in silence hoping she'd speak. Someone who got the truth while I was fed the performance. And you know what's strange? I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I didn't even ask more questions. Because when someone looks you in the eye and lies with silence, you finally understand that there's no answer you could ask that would fix it. You finally stop needing an explanation. You finally stop begging for a version of them that doesn't exist anymore. I stood up, told her I needed some air, and left the room. I walked out into night, cold on my skin, but somehow it felt better than the warmth inside. At least the cold was honest. At least the stars didn't lie. At least the wind didn't hide who it was. And in that moment, I realized something terrifying. The silence wasn't a wall between us. It was a door, one she had already walked through, one I had been standing in front of, pretending it was still locked. But it wasn't. She was gone, long gone. And if you've ever been in that place where silence replaces love, where avoidance replaces honesty, where the person beside you feels further than a stranger, subscribe. Because this story, this pain, this silence, it's not just mine. It might be yours too. And if no one else hears you, I do. And sometimes being heard is the first step out of the silence that you've come this far. That means something. You felt this. You lived it. Maybe not this exact story, but your own version of it. So if you're still here, still breathing under the weight of something they'll never apologize for, hit subscribe. Because no one should walk through this kind of betrayal alone. And if no one else says it, I will. I'm glad you're still here.